A deadly epidemic is sweeping the nation, and citizens are crying for relief. Illegal drug use is on the rise, and it's starting to affect everybody: your neighbor, family member, your best friend. At some point, somebody in your life will be affected by drugs. I am here as a police officer and as a friend of the community to give you a first hand experience as to what these illegal drugs are doing to our country, how they're getting here, and what you can do to stop them. So, the two biggest names out there are heroin and methamphetamine. More particularly, it's going to be the black tar heroin type. That's being shipped straight up from the cartels in Mexico. Your biggest corridor runs from the southern tip of Alabama, actually. It runs all the way up to the northern tip of Interstate 65, where it ends in Chicago. This is actually the main heroin and meth trafficking corridor, and it's a lot of the reason why many counties in North Alabama, especially counties that are bordered along Interstate 65, and up north through Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio, Illinois, Indiana. That's why a lot of these counties are higher in drug use, particularly with heroin and methamphetamine, than any other type of drug, because these are instant access with the cartels. And what happens is with communities like here in Alabama, for example, with Morgan County, and even though it doesn't necessarily run through it, Marshall County, because it's only one county over from an interstate. What's happening is these cartels, what they're looking for is they're looking for somewhere that is quiet, not as many people, the population may be low, a lot of wide open space. And the reason why is there's also not going to be a lot of police presence. There's not going to be a big police presence. So they'll go through and they'll purchase a piece of property that's way back off, hidden from view, way off of the road. It might be a big farm that's got an old barn on it. The cartel will go and buy that up in a heartbeat, and they'll start running their operation out of that barn. A lot of these barns along the Interstate 65 corridor serve as distribution centers for a lot of these counties, especially up and down the East Coast, because these guys, yeah, they can take another interstate to go over there. That's easy. But they got to be able to have somewhere where they can offload their product off of the interstate and get it off of eyes before they get caught with it, because these guys are trying to make money off of it. So they'll go out of their way, find somewhere quiet, so that way they don't try to raise a lot of alarm. Because of this has caused a lot of small towns and smaller in size cities to start being overran with drug overdoses, people winding up in prisons because of drug use. The crime rate is higher, especially violent crimes towards people, such as, not really rape, but gun crimes, home invasions, those are the, even grand theft autos. Those are particularly higher in communities that are overran more with drugs, because you have the gun crimes, which you get one guy trying to sell something, and another guy either wants to buy it or doesn't want to buy it. He's like, oh, why am I going to pay you with this money? And now you have a gun crime. Or with home invasions, home break-ins, these people are messed up off of drugs. Same thing with the gun crimes. These people are messed up off of drugs. You have no idea what they're going to do. Personal experience to me, there was a guy that lived maybe a few units down from me. I lived in an apartment, and there's a guy that lived maybe a few units down from me, and he had a roommate. Well, this guy was pretty cool when he moved up there for a few months, and seemed all right. Me and him hung out a few times, and eventually I started noticing something was starting to be a little off about this guy. He stopped hanging around me as much, stopped really talking to people as much. Me and his roommate were real good friends too. And finally, eventually, one day his roommate came up to me. He's like, "Hey, my roommate went to jail." I was like, "Oh no, I didn't know that." Because I did. And I asked him why he went to jail. Well, his place of employment, he popped up on a drug test. Popped up with heroin in the system. Nobody had any idea. Come to find out, the guy was injecting it between his toes. Little cringy, but that's what they're doing because it's not visible to the public. You're not just going to walk around and show your toe to everybody. So that's what he was doing. He was taking needles and injecting the heroin in between the toenails, or in between his toes. And that's what he did. Well, he popped up on it, but that's not why he went to jail. He went to jail because he was trying to get the money to buy more heroin because he was already that messed up on it. This guy was probably only using for about a month. Well, the reason why he got caught was because he stole a lot of his roommate's electronics, his TV, his PlayStation, stole a lot of his stuff and tried to pawn it off. Well, his roommate was smart and reported everything stolen and got it all back. And that's how he got caught, because he got hit with a pawn shop. Up there, pawn shops are required to run serial numbers on certain products and everything like that through a national database. So if it comes back stolen, then they lock the person in the store, or they get video footage of their face, and they'll hold the property until the police come and can turn the property back over to the original owner. And they'll also have a face and a name of the person that tried to sell the product, thinking that, oh, hey, I got some money, I got away from it, whatever. And they'll get arrested for it. Well, most pawn shops do that. But it's crippling economies. You get people that spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars a week on drugs, on heroin and meth, that they can't hardly afford to hardly go eat. They can't hardly afford to live in a house or a trailer. So a lot of them wind up resorting to being homeless, or they'll just wander around the streets. You can't, because these people are spending so much money on trying to get high again, and it's always more and more and more. The only reason why is because they're trying to find what made them feel as good as it did the first time. And that's how addictions start, because you do it just one time, you're going to feel great. You're going to be higher than any jet airplane that flies above you. Okay, you're going to be in the clouds. It's going to be a great feeling, a great sensation. And what happens is they want to feel this again. Well, the more you do it, the more it takes for you to feel that. And the more you take, the harder you come down off of it. So eventually what people wind up doing is they just stay that way, because it physically and mentally hurts their body and their head when they come down off of it. That's why withdrawals are so hard with people, especially with people that are going to rehab. That's why they eventually resort back to doing it, because it's just it became such a part of their life, and they got so used to doing it and so addicted to it that they can't live without it. Their body physically shuts down because they can't operate a normal life without it. So, uh, what a lot of people, what a lot of cities and towns are doing, a lot of fire departments and EMS stations and even police officers now, they're carrying around Narcan, trying to bring these people back to life after an overdose, because they're taking so much of it that eventually they just take more than what their body can handle. Um, anyway, so now that you've been made aware of what's been going on, this is how you can help. If you see something, say something. Report suspicious activity to your local authorities. You will never know how far along a tip can go, because that guy that's riding around in a car that just doesn't seem right to you could be one of the biggest drug pushers in your area, and you would never know. Um, One phone call could mean the difference to having hundreds of people, adults and kids alike, being saved. The local and state officials can help recognize the most problematic areas by saturating defenses and patrols and getting dealers and mules off of the streets. You can't be a dealer without a supplier. And the only way you get your product is by a mule. Somebody that runs the product from the supplier to the dealer. You bust the mules, you shut down the whole operation, because now the dealer can't push out anything. All right. I'm kind of starting to see this now, kind of popping up. A few years ago, you didn't really see much of these, but state-funded rehab centers. They're actually a really great thing, and if it helps get people off of the streets and off of drugs and really gives them the help that they need, I'm all for it. And like I said before, you never really know who's going to be on drugs. It changes a person. And a person's not going to react how they normally would if they weren't on drugs. And that's a fact. Seek out and help people get help before they kill themselves or get somebody killed.